So today we're going to talk a little bit about MasteryConnect, just an overview of what it is and the benefits of it, and a very brief description of each of the sections, and then we'll go in depth later as to what each section is, how to set up your trackers, how to make curriculum maps, all of the different sections of it. But today we'll just kind of do a basic brief overview of what it is and how it will help. So who loves actually tracking data? Think about, what are you currently doing in your classroom to collect data, and how comfortable are you in collecting data and reading data to redesign your instruction? I know a lot of times we look at little data all the time, but how are we actually collecting that data and using it to reassess? So MasteryConnect is going to help us with that, so we don't feel frustrated by tracking data or trying to find all of our data binders, that kind of a thing. So the traditional teaching model, we start out by planning our lessons, and we teach our lessons, our students practice it, we assess their information, whether it's through a project or a test, we grade it, and then we record that grade and we move on. However, with mastery learning, we're teaching, we're practicing, and we're assessing, we're grading, and then we're reteaching and reassessing and re-recording as we go. Performance-based mastery learning, we're doing all of that at the same time. So we're teaching and practicing, and while we're doing that, we're also assessing and grading and recording, reteaching, reassessing all at the same time. So MasteryConnect is going to help us do that in an easier format. So we can assign assessments based on standards, and it's going to show us how our students are doing based on those standards. So whether they're mastery, near mastery, they need remediation, so that way we can redo our lessons or reassess our students as we need to. So this is one of the things that we'll go in more in depth about. This is a tracker, and this is going to basically show us where our students are on each standard that we're assessing. And you can see this is probably one where it was towards the beginning of the year where there was a lot of remediation, a lot of near mastery, and then as it went on, you can identify maybe we need to definitely specify Joel. We definitely need to look at whatever standard C5 is and hit that again with our class. So it's really going to show us what standards do specific students or the class as a whole need more help at. MasteryConnect helps improve student outcomes by identifying levels of understanding, targeting students for intervention, and then self-evaluating learning and teaching. So this is not just another thing. It's a tool to help us gather data and improve validity to increase instruction. Data has to drive our instruction so we can better help our students to learn. So when you log in, this is kind of what it looks like, and we'll actually go through the different sections now. So you'll have any person you follow will be on here. The suggestion is that you only follow people within your department or that teach a similar course that you teach, because all of their items will show up on here, and you don't necessarily need someone from another department's assessments showing up in your feed. So this is your news feed. Next thing we're going to look at is trackers. So trackers, like I said, is where all of your students in their mastery is going to show up for each standard. So you'll have one tracker per class, and it's just going to show you how many standards have you assessed, and where are those students based on those standards. So you'll see we have a lot of assessments. There's 21 assessments from Reading Literature 1, and we definitely need more work on that, where there's 2 assessments on Reading Literature 5. That's something that they're very proficient at, so we'll come back to that. We'll talk about trackers more in depth in a later video. Next thing is curriculum maps. Curriculum maps is where it's going to show what standards you're going to assess in each unit. One thing that to note on the curriculum map, though, is if you have a assessment that you're using for that specific unit, it won't show up only in that specific unit. It'll show up anytime it's used in that standard. So for Unit 1, these are not all the assessments they take for Unit 1. In Unit 1, we teach Reading Literature 11 to 12.1. These are all the assessments that go along with that standard. So that's one thing to note about curriculum maps. And we'll go more into depth about those. Next tab is students. So this is going to have a list of all of your students in your classes. And if you click on the student, it's going to show you more information as far as what kind of progress are they making. Next tab is progress reports. Progress reports will show you, based on what standards you select, how students are doing in those standards for that grading period. The assessments tab is where you can upload your own assessments, as well as you can find assessments from within the community. So I can select my specific subject. I can select what standard bank we're using, if there's a specific grade level, and if there's a specific standard. And then I can find other ones from within that standard. Next tab is pins. Pins is kind of like Pinterest, except within MasteryConnect. So pins are going to be any resources that you use for that assessment. When you pin resources, it's any websites that you found useful or any pictures that you found useful for that one. Like Socratic Smackdown is a really fun activity to do. So it's kind of like Pinterest, but within MasteryConnect. Last one is community. In the community tab, you're going to be able to see other teachers, whether it be other teachers in your school, other teachers in your district, other teachers that use MasteryConnect in general. And you can follow teachers, and that's where it will show up in your news feed. One thing to note is Socrative is going to integrate into MasteryConnect later. So we'll have a later video specifically over Socrative, but Socrative is kind of like a quiz-based assessment where they can take short quizzes, they can do space races, they can play games, and that information will be dumping into MasteryConnect. And then Mindful is MasteryConnect's PD service. So if you go through, you can figure out what level am I at, and it'll also walk you through each different setting. So if you are in the introduction level, you can go through all the course video on how to create things. So you can always go back through MasteryConnect, find the courses, and watch the instructional video that's most beneficial to what you need. So it's kind of a basic overview of MasteryConnect. Like I said, in later videos, we'll go over specifics of how to create those trackers, how to add assessments, all of that fun stuff.